Hi everyone! So in today's demo, you're going to learn how to create your own inspirational quote poster. So to get started, let's start with a brand new document. Go to File, New, and then what you're going to look for at the very top here, you can see there are a series of different options of different formats. If you click on the print option, you'll notice there are 4 presets already set for you. Go ahead and select Tabloid. So Tabloid is going to format your poster to be 11 by 17, which is a very standard poster size. What you're going to want to check is just make sure that your poster is 11 by 17, 300 resolution, and because we're going to be first reviewing them digitally, we want to make sure our color mode is RGB. If you do decide to download a print version or a print copy, make sure you change that color mode to CMYK. All right, another option that you have is you can choose to format your poster. You can either do a portrait style or a landscape style. Once you're ready, go ahead and click on that button, Create. So here is your blank poster to get started. So for this project, I actually want to start with a white blank background. So I'm going to actually add a second layer, and this is going to be my texture layer. So in order to add my texture, you're going to go to File, Open, and you're going to look for your downloaded texture that you have put in your personal drive, Google Drive. So in your Google Drive, you want to find the texture that you want to use. So for this, I chose this leafy texture. I'm going to go ahead and open that. So what it does when you open a file, it's going to open in a separate screen. So you'll notice up here, I have 3 different tabs open. So I have my texture tab, which is one file. I have my newest file, as well as the quote poster example, as you can see here. So I want to go to my leaves. In order to copy this, what I want to do is first make sure I unlock the background, so that way I can select it. So all I did was double click on the background and it will turn into layer 0. Now you want to use the key commands, Control A, which will select all of your space. So Control A. After you hit that, you'll see these little marching ants around the border. So these little marching ants actually tell you that you have selected your texture. So the next step is you want to copy your selection. You go to Control C, that is copy. You should be able to also go up to Edit and Copy as well. Now I want to click on the tab that is now my poster layer, and I want to paste it into this layer. So first I want to make sure I'm in my texture layer, which is layer 1, and I'm going to hit Paste. I'm going to change the name here to Leaf Texture. All right, so you'll notice, oh dear, it is really small, and I really want to make sure it's going to fit the entire project. So in order to do that, you're going to transform. So go to Control T, is transform. You can also go up to Edit, and you'll notice Free Transform is what is selected. So that's the same as the key command, Control T. So I'm going to pull from one of the corners all the way up. So I'm going to click Enter as soon as you're done with that. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make a color overlay. So I'm going to make a new layer, call this a color overlay. Okay, and I'm going to pick a color. So I think I want to give it kind of a bluish feel. So I'm actually going to paint the entire layer blue. Now you might be going, oh my gosh, what happened to my texture? No worries. It is still, if you go over here to your layers, if you click on the eye right there, you can change the visibility so you can hide this layer, and look, it's right there. Now in order to create this color overlay, I'm going to have to use the layer options. So I want to go and check out some of the different options. So there is darken, multiply, color burn, linear, and so on. So I want to find one that I really like. So as you can see here with some of these down here, I can still, if I choose overlay, that still lets me see through, but it gave everything kind of this bluish tone. So I kind of like the soft light or the screen. I think I'm going to go ahead and click on soft light as the one I want to use. So the next thing I want to do is I want to create a box. If you look at my example, so I have this green box here. So the reason why I did that is if I were to type directly onto this background, you're not going to see it very well. So in order to do that, I'm going to change the color again. And I'm going to start off probably a little darker. So now that I've chosen my color, I'm going to click on the rectangle tool. So with your poster, depending on your background, you may or may not need to add a rectangle as an overlay. It is an option. So this is where I'm showing you some of those design options as you're creating your own poster. So I want to get rid of my stroke. So in order to do that, you look under the options here. You go under stroke. It's also located up here at the very top of your screen, right under your menu options. So the fill is this color for your rectangle, and then here is the stroke option. So if you want to make an outline around it, that is an option as well. So I'm going to go ahead and make this just a wee bit bigger, kind of really fill the space. I now want to use my move tool. So if I go all the way up to the top and click on the move tool, I can then use my alignment. So as you can see here, this is now centered my rectangle into the space. The next thing I want to do is I want to reduce the opacity. That way I can see through the rectangle. All right, in my design, I decided to add a border. This is another design element that is up to you, however you choose to add it. Feel free to be creative with creating borders or different shapes and utilizing some of these basic tools. So to make the next layer, I need to add a new layer. I'm still going to use that rectangle tool, but this time, instead of having a fill, I want to get rid of the fill. I want a stroke this time, and I want it to be bigger. So let's go with that. Let's see how thick my line is. All right, so my line is pretty thin, which looks nice and delicate. I'm going to use my move tool to kind of center it. So I'm going to double it up by making a copy and then use Control T because I want to shrink it. I'm going to shrink the corners in a little bit, go back to the move tool, and I'm going to center it so there's even spacing. I'm going to go back to this rectangle just to make sure that it is also centered. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to add in my text. So my background is pretty much complete. If you want to, just to make this a little bit more simple, you can actually hold down the Shift key, select everything, Control G, and make a group. So this would be my background. You are going to have several layers coming up with your text. The reason why your text is going to have several layers is because you're going to be breaking it up into different sections. That way you can manipulate it with different font styles. You can also move the font around as well. So the next thing you want to do is you want to grab your quote, copy it, and then grab that text tool. So select the text tool. I'm actually going to make a box. That way my text will be all inside of this box. Control V. I'm going to highlight all the text and change this to black. The reason why it's good to copy and paste your full quote is so that way you don't forget or lose any of your words. So now what I want to do is create another layer, use my text tool, and now I want to work with text that's much bigger in order to kind of break it up or fill most of this space. So the first thing I want to do is, if I'm going to mimic my example over here, you'll notice that styles is on a line of its own. So I'm going to choose that first, highlight it. Let's make this much bigger, maybe 200. That's a little too big. 150, that looks pretty good. So that's a pretty good size to be dynamic, bold, and eye-catching. So the next thing I want to do is customize it into the font style that I like. So because this is more condensed, I'm going to make it bigger, make it pop more in my poster. Okay, so looking back over here, I have come and go is the next part of the line. So I'm going to grab another layer. So as you can see here, each part of your text is going to be divided into different layers. Make this bigger. Oops. Now my text is way too big. Down to 100. And I'm going to change it to birch. All right. So when I originally put this together, I had come and go together all in one line. What I noticed, however, is that it was running too close, like my and was running too close to the Y. And I wanted to make sure that the Y was still separated. All right, so the next step is to create another layer. So you're going to keep doing this for each part of your text. Come back over here, make the come a lowercase c. All right, so another thing you're probably wondering is, as I'm copying this, this is the same font, but over here, the letters are spaced out more. So to change your spacing, this is called kerning. So kerning is the space between your letters, and leading is the space between your lines of text. So styles and come and go, the space in between here is called leading. Now my space between my letters is going to be kerning. So what I want to look for is there should be over here along your panel, right in front of layers, there should be an A. And if you hover over it, it should say character. What that means is that you're looking for how to adjust your text. You'll see here the A over A. This is your leading. So you can change how your words are stacking on top of each other. Now, if you look at the VA, that is your kerning. So I'm going to play with kerning. I like it at 75. Looks good. I'm going to do the same thing here. Change my kerning to 75 so it is unified. Okay, So the next part is good design. So I want to create a new text layer. This one is good design. Let me center this better and choose a new font. All right, so as you can see here, this is a little too big to fit the space. I'm going to reduce the size to 75 and see if I can get that to fill the space. All right, so that looks pretty good, but at the same time, I noticed that it's getting cut off by the edge here. So I want to go back to these 3 rectangles. I'm going to click Control T and make these just a hair bigger, so that way my design can fit the space. Then I want to make sure it's centered. There we go. So that looks good so far. I'm going to close my background. Good design. Other elements that you are welcome to play with is you can make boxes around your text. You can also, under the shape tool, there's the line tool. So if I wanted to also create some emphasis by drawing lines, I can add that into my work as well. So feel free to be creative with your design styles and how you put everything together. So the last part is a language, not a style. I'm going to language is the next part. And this one, oops. Sometimes when you're trying to edit your text, you may accidentally click somewhere. What you can do is you can just grab that layer and delete it. So you want to be really conscious of highlighting the text that you need. And I'm going to go back to Birch and increase my text to 100. There's a language. Skip the last part. Not a style. It is a language, should be a comma after that. So this is where having your text pasted into your work is really helpful. Another thing you can do is if I go back over there and I highlight his name, I don't want to get it wrong. I'm going to highlight the name and copy it. So I can do that with Control C. I'm going to have to make a new text box. Text space, Control V in order to get that in there. Let me change this to Birch. And it is way too small. So as you can see here, my leading is what's being messed with. So I want to go under that A. Leading, 100. And if you're not seeing it, then just adjust your text box. So let's try 60, because I want it to be pretty close. It's a little too close. Change it to 65. All right, so I'm going to go to my move tool. This looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and put all of my text in a group. Text. And that really helps clean up your workspace. So now I have all of my text layers, and each text layer tells me what's on that text layer. So this is my entire quote. I want to hide that. And I want to take all of my text. So now I have this big empty space up here. So I want to take all of my text, make sure it's centered, and I want to center it more as the overall design. So my background, I'm going to make this just a little less opaque, and I want to change the color to be brighter. Okay, that looks much better. So there's more contrast there. Okay, so this is where if I change my background color, I'll just do this color. And if I change the leaf overlay, you can really see what's happening. So as you can see, these layer options can really do a lot to change your work. I'm going to delete that because I do like it looking brighter. So one of the things I highly recommend that you do is make sure that you save your work when you first get started, and save it a couple times while you are working. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that everything is saved. So as you can see here, it's been saved. I'm good to go. I want to flatten my image so I can save it as a JPEG. So I'm going to flatten, discard hidden layers, click OK. So now I want to click Save As, and that's really important because you want to make sure you're saving as a JPEG and you're not overwriting your Photoshop file. So now I have my quote poster demo. That looks good. Save. Press OK. So now what I want to do is I want to save my work as a print version. So what I want to do is go under Image, Mode, and under Image and Mode, you'll see the different color mode options. So now I want to click on CMYK. Changing modes will affect the appearance of layers. Flatten the image before the change. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten it because I'm done with my file. And this is just to tell me that I'm about to change everything to CMYK. All right, so I'm going to save as. Again, you don't want to hit save, otherwise you override your previous file. So I'm going to save as quote poster demo print. So the reason why you want to distinguish if it's a print file is so that way you know that this has been formatted in CMYK, which means that this will print the colors more accurately than it would in RGB. So this concludes the tutorial on how to create your own inspirational quote poster. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you next time.